We are live and all set to go.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. Let me just do a quick note to myself and we're good to go. Got it. All right. Welcome to the Northborough Historic District Commission's meeting for today of April 21st. And let me start with some formalities. My name is Norm Corbin. I'm the chair of this commission. We're holding an open meeting this evening. So this open meeting of the Historic District Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the Historic District Commission are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. This order allows the commission to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to the Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will have public comment because of the open hearing section. I think we're good to go. Millie, thank you for taking the meeting minutes this evening. I appreciate that greatly. So the first item on the agenda is the demolition of the buildings at 1 Lyman Street.
So I do not see anyone from the representative group in attendees, I believe. I have Ann Beckstrom and Tom Reardon.
Tom Reardon, I'd like him to be able to come in so he can participate. We can hold the meeting without members who own the property. That is possible. I'm a little surprised one of them hasn't shown up. You were expecting some other people, weren't you, Jim? You said.
So I wasn't expecting anybody. All I know is it's just from previous meetings. They've been in front of other boards.
Okay.
So I'm familiar with the group of people who are presenting, but I don't know if they were planning on being in attendance tonight or not.
We have a couple of options here. We could delay the open hearing for like 15 minutes and start our regular meeting, or just go into it. Usually it's going to take about 5 to 10 minutes before we would have participation from the from the owners anyway. So I'm just looking for some guidance here.
I would say we should move stuff around so that we can wait for them.
I'm just not sure they're coming.
Does Tom know if they're coming?
No, Tom would know. He's here. He's here as a possible alternate for our committee.
Okay.
He's not here associated with that project.
Okay.
All right. Well, why don't we start with the meeting minutes, and we get the meeting minutes done, and then if the applicants haven't participated by that point, then we'll switch over and we'll do the public hearing. That sound reasonable?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. So we'll start with the prior meeting minutes. Bruce said they had 3 in his attachment. Now, 2 of them were sent previously, and I have those. I can pull them right up and put them on the screen for those who want to have their memories refreshed. Is that possible? Is that worthwhile for those who haven't seen the 2 previous ones? Let's see if I'll pull them up and we can see what we're talking about. This is the one for the special meeting, and I got to do the shared screen thing. So let's see if this is going to work for me. Let's see. Share the screen. So. Does anybody see that?
Not,
Coming.
Not yet.
says something's coming. There you
Yep.
go.
Yeah,
Oh, there's a lag time. Interesting. Okay, this is the Wednesday, March 4th meeting. It was a one-topic meeting, and these are the meeting minutes from that. So I'll leave it up for a minute so all those who haven't seen it can read it, and then we can vote on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
All right, we'll do that. I'll give you 2 minutes to look at it. All right, how we doing?
I move we approve the minutes of the Wednesday, March 4th meeting.
Second.
second,
Okay, we'll give Brian Smith the second on that one.
All righty.
second, yep.
And let me go through the roll call. Mike DeShano. He
Oh,
was there.
Mike's,
Is he still there?
no, he's got his muted,
Muted, all right.
Dollar in the
Leslie,
gravel jar.
I'm sorry, Leslie? I'm doing
Yes.
the roll call. All right. Brian Smith,
yes,
Millie,
Aye.
Brian Swanson,
Yes.
and myself is yes. So we're all set with the meeting minutes, because Bob is an alternate, so he can't vote. We'll go to the other meeting minutes. Let me get rid of that one and go to the next one. This one's a little bit more long, a little bit longer. So again, I'll give you a couple minutes to look at it. Does that make sense?
yep,
And I'll get back to you in 2 minutes.
It's still the old one up.
Aha. So I have to stop the share. Got it. And then I have to go to this. Is it up now?
Yes,
All right. I'm getting better at it. Thanks, Leslie.
you're welcome. You shouldn't have to stop sharing and sharing though. If you're sharing your desktop, it should show up, but in any event, it works.
All right. Well, we'll see. Next time we'll try that. Are there any comments on this set of meeting minutes?
no from me,
Am I still unmuted?
No, you're back alive, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't quite understand the section that says that I will contact Kathy Jolbert to see what's already on the books. I don't recall what that was, and I never contacted her, so I'm not sure what that was.
I
I
think
think-
that was just the follow-up to see what they already had in place for archaeological sites, what was already on the books.
Yeah, I don't recall that, but
Okay, so if that's the case, we should remove it because that's not accurate. This is see if I can. So we need to edit that out. And if we remove that, then we're good to go.
Mhm.
Well,
All right, I'm gonna make sure I do this properly here. Remove.
okay.
Got it. All right, so I just edited it out. I'll be the one that sends these forward to Bruce to get them formally put into the system, okay? So with anything other than those changes,
I move we approve the minutes of the Wednesday, February 17th meeting as amended tonight.
Seconded.
who yelled out second? Mike?
No, Brian.
All right, good, Brian.
Brian S.
And I'll go
Yes.
through the roll
Brian S.
call.
Brian SM.
Yeah,
So we'll start with Mike DeShano.
yes, approve.
Approved. Leslie,
Aye.
Brian Smith,
yes.
Millie,
Aye.
Brian Swanson,
Approve.
and myself approved. So the meeting minutes with that edit will be sent in.
Who did the second on that?
It was
Yes.
Brian Smith.
Yeah,
Thank
Right.
you.
All right. So I don't have a copy of the meeting minutes for what was March 17th. So I don't know if someone has it and they can post it, or we can wait till next month.
Let me see.
I have it.
Okay.
I think it was in that email.
You talking about the email from today? The attachment wasn't there.
no.
Oh, I saw it. I read it.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Well,
Oh, I
I
got it.
remember last month Bruce had the same problem. There's something funky going on with on his end with his email.
Weird that some of us get it and some of us don't.
I
I've
know,
had
it's
it happen
crazy.
even when the town sends it sometimes. If Kathy Jubert sends me stuff, sometimes it comes through with that weird windmail.dat instead of an actual attachment.
Let's see. Should I try to find it?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, hang on. Okay, I found it, but I don't know what to do. Should I email?
You
You
might
can
get
either
it.
one option is on the bottom of the screen. It says shared files. Do you have your Zoom in full mode? Full video. Can't think of the word here.
Yes.
Okay, so at the bottom there should be a green icon that says share screen.
Share content. It's at the top.
All right, yeah, I don't.
So I can share screen.
Yeah, if it's now you're entering territories that I'm not skilled at.
Yeah,
The
so
problem is when I go to the document, I lose Zoom.
All right, why don't you email it and we'll address it later in the meeting.
Okay.
And if that doesn't work, we'll do it next week, next month.
All right. I'll email it to you now.
Okay. And then we'll switch back to the public hearing.
Okay, I just emailed it, Norm.
All right. Let's go and see. Jim, could you let us know if the applicants have arrived yet?
I do not believe I see anyone from the applicants group, but I do believe there are 2 members of the public here for the public hearing.
All right. Well, let's go. I think we should go through with the public hearing at this point. So I'll start off with explaining how this all works regarding the demolition of an antique property in Northborough for the newbies in the group. When a property in the town of Northborough is over 100 years old and it's entered into the database that the Massachusetts Historical Commission has, the database essentially lists all of what they consider to be Northborough historic assets. So if the property is listed in that database, then the Historic District Commission reviews the property in terms of its significance. And there's 2 parts to significance. It can be either architecturally significant or it could be historically significant. We review the information on the property to see if it's significant or not. Significant means we would put a 6-month demolition delay on the property to look for alternatives to demolition. And if it's not significant, then the demolition can occur at any time. So we have to do our homework on the property. And what we do for that is we go to the Historical Society and see what they have on file on the property. We go to the Mass Historical Commission's database and see what records are on the property. We walk the property and we photograph it. And we can go inside the house if the owners allow us to, but we certainly can walk the property on the outside. And we usually do this with the owner. And what we're looking for is, usually from an architectural point, is there something special here? So I have to start off by saying that this property was addressed in 2015, if my memory is correct, either 2015 or 2016. The property was put up for demolition at that time. And we did the walkthrough, we did the history, we did the evaluation. The end result of that back 6 years ago now was we did put the property on a 6-month demolition delay. So we put it on a 6-month demolition delay. And the primary reason for that is because of the barn that's on the property. It's a 3-story older barn. And we put it on a delay, not so much to avoid it from demolition, but to work with the owner and see if there was any way we could find a salvage company that could utilize the wood. So that's where everything stood 6 years ago. So here we are now. We can go through some of the pictures from back then and some information that the owner had supplied me recently about his results. So I'll try to find my photographs. Let's see if we can pull up some photographs here. I do. Do you people see the screen?
No,
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, let me. Do this. All right, you see this screen?
yeah,
All right, so this is from the file from previously. So this is a picture. I'll open up a picture of the barn. This is looking, you can see this from, actually you see from Bartlett Street. So this is the view of the barn. This was 6 years ago is what the barn looked like. And this is a picture of the barn from the back. You can see how tall that
It's
structure is.
big, yeah.
You really can't see this until you go onto the property.
yeah.
And let's see, you guys over here is another picture of the barn.
Has this property been empty for 6 years?
No.
No, the house, it's rented property. The owner does not live there. He rents it, leases it. And there's been somebody, I don't know if it's vacant now, I don't think so, but back then there was somebody living in the home. And he was using the barn, I think, for his own purposes for storage. I wanna go. So let me see what we got here for, so those are the pictures of the barn. This is the letter we sent back in 2015 to the Board of Selectmen. What we did is we sent the letter and we said we voted 6-0 that the buildings are historically significant and the demolition delay will continue. And our goal for continuing the delay is to support the property owner to finding a company that would disassemble rather than demolish the older properties to salvage the old wood from the 4-story barn and possibly home. And with that, we attach the list of contacts that companies we know of that do wood resalvaging. I have an email from him, from Ian Gao about 2 weeks ago. He followed up with me to remind me that he did look at some of these companies. They came out, but the wood for the barn is not really the antique type of wood that these people look for. It wasn't the chestnut. It wasn't that type of wood. It was, it wasn't something that would be interesting to a company that recycles. So that's pretty much where we are today. So amongst us, let's start our discussion amongst us of how do we feel, how should we proceed here?
It's the same owner that was in 2015?
Yes, it is the same owner, Ian Gao. He owned it since 2015. Well, he's been owning it from then to current, yes.
I think we ought to let it go and tear it down.
I agree. I think if he's done what we asked him to do and the time frame has passed, it seems like we should allow that to.
The way I've been looking at it, and we took the same approach recently on Main Street, is we took the same approach on Main Street. We put in for a 6-month demolition delay. And the purpose of that is to find alternatives to, salvaging the wood from the barn. Here we are 6 years later. So we essentially had a 6-year and 6-month demolition delay. And the only result that's been able to occur is that the barn still has to come down. The house will come down also. We could find nothing really unique about the house that made it architecturally significant. So I just feel part of it for consistency's sake and reality's sake, what would another 6 months add to a demolition delay that in a sense has been in place for 6 years and 6 months?
Do we even have the authority to do that?
To do what?
To extend it?
No, we can only, we could do a 6-month delay starting today. Yes, we could do that. Because there's a new demolition permit that we need.
Okay,
We're working off, we work off the demolition permit, 6 months from a demolition permit request.
okay, all
And
right.
his went in on April the 1st.
So the old one expired. Okay. Yeah, I don't see any.
Correct. That's a good question, Leslie. So now what I'd like to do is, if we're done with input, I need to open it up to anybody from the town that's to listen to their concerns and comments regarding the possible demolition.
So I do have 2 hands in the audience, I believe Ann Beckstrom. So if it's all right, I'll allow her to talk.
That'd be great.
All right, Ann, I believe you are connected.
Okay, thank you. This is Ann Beckstrom.
Yes.
And can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. My name is Ann Beckstrom, and I live at 152 Bartlett Street, which is the property directly abutting this one Lyman Street parcel. And, obviously, I am of the opinion that here we are 6 years later, and as you've probably read in the paper, that building products have escalated significantly in price. And possibly there could be somebody out there at this juncture that might be interested in utilizing or repurposing some of the material of either in the house or of those beautiful New England barns. So, I would ask that you would reconsider your, sounds like unanimous opinion of wanting to tear down that almost 200-year-old beautiful colonial residence, which is really the proper use for that piece of property as opposed to a 20,000 square foot warehouse, box warehouse. I think a colonial home is a better view for the gateway of Northborough than a big, huge warehouse. So, I would ask that you do give a little bit more time for someone else to weigh in now, all things considered. I think it's sad that Northborough has such little regard for historic property. I guess, Norm, you were telling me that you've knocked down about 2 historic buildings. Is that per year or more frequently? But, I think it's sad. And I do think if this same structure were maybe downtown, maybe your opinion would be a little bit different. But I guess, that's just my opinion as the abutter across the street that's going to have to, first of all, deal with the demolition, noise, and the mess, and also the subsequent project that's going to go in after the fact, possibly. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
No, I'm glad you're giving us the information, Ian. That's what the public forum is for. Thanks for that. Jim, was there someone else with their hand up?
Yes, John Wixt, and or sorry if I mispronounced that, but I will allow him to talk now.
Okay, thank you.
And John, I believe you are connected.
Hi, it's John Wickstead from 2 Sturbrook Lane in Northborough. I would make a couple of points here. First of all, I would say that, I think the owner has some obligation to demonstrate to the committee and really to the town that he's put sufficient effort into this. If I was interested in developing a property and, it would be a lot easier for me just to tear it down than to try and find somebody to take it away and use it. And a couple of emails here and there is probably not sufficient amount of effort on the part of the owner, frankly, to try and save this building for somebody else to reuse. I think the owner should have some obligation to demonstrate that he has put due diligence into this effort. And I think taking him at his word would be fine if he were here to actually, tell us what kind of effort he put into it. Unfortunately, he cares so much about this that he didn't even make it to the meeting. So, I don't know, Mr. Gao, maybe he did put sufficient effort into this, but until we have some documented evidence that he's put sufficient effort into trying to find an alternative use for this building, I think the Historic Commission here has an obligation to hold him to a standard, that he's actually following through on this. Simply sending him a list of emails and then throwing up our hands in despair 6 years later because he's failed to really do anything about it isn't really grounds to justify him tearing down this, beautiful building. I mean, I've never seen the back of it, but the pictures that you show there are compelling. I mean, this building is straight. The roof is good. It's not sagging or falling down. Like, this is a solid 200-year-old post and beam barn. And I hate to see that go by the wrecking ball simply because, we don't have any documentation that the owner really put sufficient amount of effort into trying to find somebody who might be able to put this to good use. The second point I would make is that, and Ann's probably not going to bring this up herself, but the ZBA issued a special permit for the construction of the warehouse, which is currently being contested. And that contesting of that permit can take quite some time. So I don't think that putting a 6-month moratorium on tearing this down is going to put the owner or the developers at any kind of a disadvantage. It's going to take more than 6 months for the ZBA permit application process to wind its way through the appropriate courts. So there's no way that 6-month process is going to put either the owner or the developer at any kind of a disadvantage. So, I would urge the Historical Commission to at least delay until we can hear from the owner what kind of effort he's put into trying to find other people to use this property, rather than just allowing him to tear this down without demonstrating that he's really, followed through on your previous recommendations. And second, I would ask you to really understand that, a 6-month moratorium on this particular project is not going to put either him or the developer at any kind of a disadvantage. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. John, excuse me. We can't speak for the, one quick question, Jim, is anybody else, is Ian or another representative for the owners available?
I do not believe so. I'd still just see the same 2 attendees.
Okay, very good.
Hey, Norm,
Yeah. Yes, Tom?
may I make a point on John's recent remarks?
Well, I thought I'd have to say I don't think so,
Okay.
because hear me out first, and then we'll see, Tom, if you can make the point or not. Our role is very simple here. Is the building historically significant, or is it not historically significant? And does it warrant a 6-month continuation of a delay? Both Ian and John had made some valid points, but I'm not sure they're really, the issue with the ZBA is not part of our call. The issue with what the owner may have done in the past, I think he's done other things, but he'd have to speak for himself. That's not our call. Our call is strictly, is the property historically significant or not?
Or may I ask for a point of order or just a clarification?
Sure.
So
I'm
this
done.
is not a continuation, though. This is a brand new demolition delay, not a
Correct.
continuation.
This is a request for a brand new demolition delay. That is correct. Liz.
Okay, then I think that changes things significantly. And I would opt to go for the delay.
And explain why you think that.
Because a lot has transpired in this last 6 years. And we don't know exactly what was done, as was pointed out by public comment. We don't know what was done during the prior delay. And I think we should just look at it with a fresh set of eyes. I'm not sure that the history should be relevant. I'm prepared to be convinced otherwise, but I think if we should look at it from a clean slate.
Tom, I welcome your input.
So John mentioned a ZBA decision that relates to another property on Bartlett Street. It is not 1 Lyman Street, which you're discussing now. Separate parcels, separate projects.
I have to be careful here because now I've got more participants in. I want to make sure everybody's clear. My interest in this group is the building significant or not? And does it warrant a 6-month delay? So I have some more raised hands by the same people. I will entertain them, but I have a restriction on time limit. So please, if you could bring Ann back in, that would be good, Jim.
Not a problem. And then once they are finished, if you want to close out the public comment period, and then you can go back into discussion.
Okay. Thank you,
So
Jim.
Ann, you are back on.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yep.
can, Ann.
Again, this is Ann Beckstrom, 152 Bartlett Street in Northborough. And, I did want to say that there is an appeal in process on the 1 Lyman Street property regarding a use variance So there is something in play there. And then the other thing, I thought you said that there was some historic significance to the barn previously, and this is a new permit, as was mentioned by Leslie. So this should be looked at, I think, with, without looking back at what happened with the previous time. And I also agree with what John Wickstead was saying, that we never really did get any proof from Ian Gao in terms of what steps he had taken in talking to those different companies that you had given them that list. So I think it's worth bringing it back around again myself. Not very articulate, but sorry.
No, you did fine, Ann, you did fine. But just to make it clear, the demolition delay that we applied last time was essentially not a demolition delay. It was a program to help him find someone to dismantle the barn. So it's coming down one way or the other. That's the way we had written it the last time.
Right, but he never did really, offer evidence that he really did hear from.
Yeah, that'd be my disappointment from this evening, that we're not getting that feedback from the owner. That's
right. And it, as John Wickstead said, that it doesn't hurt anything by putting another 6-month wait period on this, given that the construction for this proposed project won't be able to begin within that time frame. It's not going to be any hardship on them.
okay.
And I wouldn't want to have to look at just a, blank piece of property or a collapsed building for 2 years.
Thank you, Ann.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
And could you bring Jim, could you bring John in? I think he had his hand up. I don't know if it's still up.
Not a problem. It is. So John, you're live.
Thanks, John Wickstead from 2 Surbrook Lane. I appreciate the commission's interest in this. Just as a point of clarification, I think Ann already brought up that there is a ZBA permit which is being appealed, and that appeal process will take quite some time. If this property is torn down, then Ann's going to be looking at, a torn down set of buildings across the street from her until that ZBA permit is solidified. I realize that isn't what you're talking about tonight. What you're talking about tonight is the historic relevance of the building. If it was historically relevant 6 years ago, I'm not sure why it's not historically relevant tonight. And I would say that, it was a unanimous vote 6 years ago that the building had historical relevance and that some effort should be made, not towards preventing its demolition, but preventing its, turning into a dumpster. And I think that same should hold true tonight. If it was relevant 6 years ago, it's certainly relevant tonight. Some effort really should be made to trying to find some constructive use for this, beautiful post and beam barn. And I hate to see the thing get chopped up, in an afternoon and thrown into a dumpster. I think the owner certainly has time to demonstrate to the board that he's put sufficient effort into trying to find an alternative use for this, obviously historically relevant building. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Jim, are there any more hands raised?
I do not believe so, no.
Okay. Well, let's close out the public comment part of this process and open it back up to committee members and see what their thoughts are, considering the new comments from Ann and from John. Anybody? We got Leslie's comments. Anybody else have something that they'd like to add?
Well,
I get,
I would add, building materials are really salvaged now. I mean, in how am I going to say this? It's really building materials have gone up in price, and it may be wise to check on building materials in salvage.
Making a good point. Wood, the price of wood's gone over. Tom would know better than me. The price of wood has shot up in the past year.
Yeah.
Hey, Norm, I had to stop your screen share. You were sharing the meeting information, the Zoom meeting information through an email, I believe.
Okay. If it makes sense, I'm glad you did. All right. Okay. So we have Brian's comments.
Norm, I have two thoughts.
Yeah.
Number one, how does our decision affect the zoning board of appeals decision? Is there any connection? In other words, if we approve the demolition, does that change their thought process on approving or not approving the variance? Is that a factor that we should consider?
Looks like Millie might have that answer. Maybe.
I
We've
don't
never
think so.
run into this predicament before.
The use variance has nothing to do with that barn.
It has to
Okay.
do with the zoning, right? Because it's a zoned industrial zone, if I remember today.
So regardless of whether the barn or the house is demolished, it doesn't really impact what the zoning board of appeals decision would be. Their decision is separate from whether there's a structure on the property or not.
Yeah.
Okay. The second thing I was thinking of is 6 years ago, they approved the demolition with the caveat, as I understand it, that the wood could be salvaged.
Yeah.
So the building itself would be removed, and whether the wood ends up in a dumpster or it ends up in somebody's, lumber yard, kind of, to me, doesn't seem to be too relevant to the issue, because in the end, the barn will be gone and the wood will go either to the lumber yard, which, would be nice to resalvage, or, as it sounds like, the person who owns it has already looked into that and concluded that the wood is not of any sufficient relevance to be used to recycle in some other way. So, I mean, I take the guy's, what he said, his work, take him at his word. And I think Norm talked to him. So, and I guess the other part of that is, do we have a particular due diligence requirement for somebody? And my understanding is I'm kind of unaware of that due diligence requirement. So if Norm has spoken to this guy and he said he's contacted at least one or two of these companies that we asked him to, and he got no response or no interest in these companies salvaging the wood, as far as I know, there is no other like permit requirement or statement or some kind of legal
That was back in 1915. I mean, 2015.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's
And
changed?
the wood has changed. I mean, salvaged wood is high right now. And it would be good to have them check in the current price of salvaged wood. So,
Yeah,
But to
guys are
confirm,
looking-
but
Go ahead.
either way it would be demolished and the wood would be salvaged.
Yeah.
Right. Just for clarification, do we know that the owner still owns it, or did he sell it to the developer?
The owner still owns it.
What more would you want him to do? Would you want him to contact that list that you gave them
Yeah,
and come back with some kind of written documentation, or what would you like him to do?
I don't think that we can require that. But see what he does.
That's kind of my point.
Yeah,
My point is that, we gave him the list. He contacted, I don't know who he contacted, but Norm spoke to him. And I assume that's recently, right, Norm?
Yeah, it's an email. I just tried to find it and I had a hard
Okay.
time looking for it. It was an email I got from him about 2 weeks ago explaining that he did have someone look at the barn. Be honest, I don't know if he had someone look at the barn 2 weeks ago or 5
Yeah.
years ago. I don't know, which would be a key
Yeah.
piece.
Well, he said the wood wasn't chestnut. So
Yeah,
the
and
wood
I know
was,
some of these people who collect salvage wood are very particular about the wood.
yeah,
This isn't the first time we have a barn taken down in Northborough where we have had somebody look at it and they said, not interested. The wood's not as old as I specialize in.
yeah.
It's not only about just having wood. A lot of these are only willing to salvage a particular kind of wood.
yeah,
that's
I
a
mean,
certain
chestnut is so rare
age.
that kind of wood would have some salvage value. But if it's just, oak or hemlock or stuff
And
that's
that's-
relatively common.
Let me
Yeah.
try again for that email. I don't know why I have a hard time finding it. And I found it this afternoon.
But even beyond that, I mean, I'm going to ask the question, I mean, when I think of something that's historically significant, as you opened the meeting discussing, wood quality or, salvageable wood, I guess I don't understand how that fits into the caveat of architecturally significant.
Good question, Mike.
I mean, we're talking salvage value here, and that seems to be outside our bounds of architecturally significant historical stuff. I guess if you could say, chestnut is so rare and so that it might have some value, but architecturally, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to make the link between wood type and what our charter is.
Mike, I think
Excuse me, I did finally find what I'm looking for. So bear with me as I read this email. All right. He hired and paid for a consultant barn expert. I don't know when. There was and is no historical merit or interest in the house. It's just old. So the house is a different topic, but it also could be salvageable. There was a possibility that the barn could be sold or marketed and may be moved or demoed for interesting, valuable timber. However, examination showed that it is mostly hemlock timber with no value, certainly no chestnut or oak. That's the email I got from him,
Yeah.
March 16th.
There are two barns and the house, right? And,
Correct. There's the
and the
big
one thing
barn,
that-
that's more like a garage in the house. Yeah.
But the large barn is the one that's significant.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
So hasn't he done his due diligence by
I guess he has. Yeah,
reading that email that Norm just read? I mean, as I said before, I'm unaware of, if we are going to ask people to do stuff like this, then we should describe to them exactly, what we want them to do and how we want them to present their results of their due diligence to us. Aside from that, which I'm unaware that we do have that requirement, it sounds like the email qualifies for him being able to do what we asked him to do. And
yeah,
I'm not saying I want barns torn down. What I'm saying is that if there's a reason to reuse that barn, I'm not I'm not getting that vibe. We're saying the wood has some salvage value. Again, I don't see where that connects to the architecturally significant charter that we have as part of determining something historical. I'm willing to, obviously discuss whatever can help me along that line.
Is it appropriate for me to raise some issues from the planning board meeting that Millie was on? Is from yesterday? Because they discussed this yesterday.
Nope, I did not see the video for the meeting.
Well,
I would like to hear it.
Well, basically what the footprint of this new warehouse that they want to build would take up the two barns and part of the house. So obviously they all have to come down. And there was a lot of objections raised, obviously. So the new owners of the warehouse were willing to put up special trees to block the construction. And so you wouldn't see the warehouse from the house across the street. Millie, jump in if I say anything wrong, because I know you were there. So the owner seems willing to, and they went through a lot of things about the traffic, and basically there's only 8 employees at the warehouse, and there's going to be very low traffic. It's mostly FedEx and UPS deliveries once or twice a day, things like that. So the owners seem, the new business seems to be willing to bend over backwards to do whatever is possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, and I don't know if this is architecturally possible, but is it possible to move the barn and not destroy it? Because we could offer that a contingency for the new owner is, okay, move the barn on, because the property seems to be pretty big. They could still build their warehouse and maybe move the barn. And that way we would have to destroy it.
You mean
I know
incorporate?
it's expensive, but I'm sure they're willing to do it.
Incorporate the barn into their design
property.
into the design for a warehouse. In other words, make the barn a warehouse.
No.
or part of their warehouse.
And I may be way off base, but is it possible to move the barn and reconstruct it to another part of the site?
Too bad we don't have an architect here that might be able to answer that.
Well,
there we go.
I can tell you, if it's just hemlock, hemlock is, in my understanding of wood, is a soft wood. And the fact that there's little to no hardwoods like chestnut and oak would probably make redoing that whole thing kind of not that desirable. But not to say it couldn't be done, but hemlock doesn't have the structural integrity as a hardwood like oak or elm or chestnut in particular. Chestnut brings in a whole different discussion because it is so rare.
Yeah, I thought my point was only that the new owner of the warehouse, in order to get this project through, is willing to do a lot of things. And this would obviously be able to, because tearing down the barn and selling the wood, to me, is you're still tearing down the barn.
Right.
It's no longer a barn, so I don't really see the point.
And the house is gone, right? I mean,
the house will be gone.
Well, that part of our discussion here doesn't involve the concern that the house has any significance in terms of historical
Correct.
value. So that's going to get, that's going on.
Yeah, sometimes you have to actually go and think back. What's architecturally significant? White Cliffs is architecturally significant. Sometimes it's that kind of, you have to see that kind of obvious architectural features. It's hard. We've had a hard time justifying a lot of architectural issues on demolitions. Mostly it's based on history of something particular with the house, something particular with the owners and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're looking at historical significance, not just architectural significance.
Right,
too, right.
right.
So,
So
two are
and
different.
usually when we do these, which is about twice a year, it's based on history of the property, history of the owners, things like that. That's generally what's come across. Brian Swanson, would you have something to say? Tom, you can comment as a non-member, but certainly we appreciate you being an architect. You might help us out with this because it's, we just need.
Okay, so
Thank you, Tom.
I'm also on the design review committee that is reviewing 1 Lyman Street at this time. And the proposed building design and landscape design have not been approved yet. So they're still in the process. But the proposed siting of the building would necessitate the removal of the house and both barns, because the majority of the back of the site is all wetlands. And I can't see any way you could repurpose a 200-year-old barn for a modern warehouse or office space. I don't think it would happen.
Thank you, Tom.
My only
Billy, there's
comment-
something you might have or question you might have?
No, I just, want to make sure that we're staying focused on what the actual parameters of our decision
Yes.
is. And it, I think, to echo some of what Mike said, whether the wood has value or not is really not part of it. And, proving due diligence as much as we'd like to be able to do that really isn't also part of it. That's really not in our regulations.
My only thought is that in 2015, the commission decided that it was historically significant. 6 years later, I don't see how it would not be.
I thought they voted to allow the demolition, but wanted the wood reused in some way. So I would ask, was the 6-0 vote back in 2015 a vote against demolition, or a vote for having them repurpose the use of the wood that was salvaged?
It said the vote was that it was historically significant.
Okay,
That was the fundamental vote. Was it historically significant? The intent. Now, myself, I was there. Brian Smith was there at the time, and Bruce Shute. The three of us were still back in 2015. We were still members at the time, and the delay was really, it was significant, but recognizing that demolition was inevitable, it was a matter of would be salvaged.
So was it deemed significant so that you could put the delay on?
It was deemed significant, so we could put a 6-month delay on, so that the owner of the time could see if the wood for the barn in the house was salvageable. And the response we recently received was the wood is not salvageable.
Yeah.
At least.
So you got the answer. We got the delay at the time to look at it, and then the answer is that it's not salvageable. So
Right.
Yeah.
But the question you said is it or is it not historically significant?
Right, and we did say it was historically. You're absolutely right, Brian Swanson, that it was determined to be historically significant. So from a basic point, that's true. So you do make a valid point. It was significant 6 years ago. Why is it not significant today? What's changed? It's a good question.
so what's the answer?
Well, the answer is we have to all think about this, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 voting members tonight, and decide what's the decision. To be honest, I don't think a 6-month delay is going to affect anything. These programs take so long, and with the design review, I don't think 6 months is going to affect the project. I don't think it's going to affect the situation with the barn. I don't think it's going to do anything other than just have it sit for 6 months and then be torn down.
right. So I mean,
Some people will say that that's the right thing to do, and it might be. But I think 6 months from now, it'll just happen anyway. So then the question.
I don't think it should color our decision whether it's going to have an impact on their building plans, so that I don't think it should inform our decision at all. But you do have a point about the fact that it's probably not going to change anything on our end, but we don't know. So I still opt for being conservative and ruling the same way we did 6 years ago.
Does all the voting members here, do you feel comfortable that you can make a decision with all the information we've just discussed for the last 45 minutes?
If
Yeah.
we were to put a delay on it, would we have to determine that it is historically significant ourselves?
Yeah, we would decide. Our decision is it historically significant or not? So we have to call it historically significant to get the 6-month delay. Now there are different things that can happen here. You can have the owner come back in 2 months and say, what have you found out? And if he's found out nothing, you can say, okay, then the delay will stop the 6-month delay. But we've never stopped the 6-month delay that I can remember over the last 12
It's
months.
unfortunate the owner's not here tonight.
Yeah, that's kind of hurting him a little bit.
I don't know if they were aware of it.
I did email him the information. This
But when did this
afternoon.
come on
Yeah.
our agenda?
I'm sorry?
When did this appear on our agenda? Just 2 days ago, right?
He was notified. He was notified today by the town. Yeah, he
Today?
was notified. Yeah, we got our notification today of how to access this meeting. Remember? We got it from Diane Wackel today.
Right, but I don't know. At the meeting last night, they did not mention that they knew that there was a
Okay.
meeting about this tonight. They had some questions.
Okay.
on it.
I forward this. Yeah, some people knew it was been posted because this is a public hearing. This meeting was posted over 7 days ago, so it has been posted. So, but I sent Ian an email when I got back today. I was out all day. When I got back, I sent him so that he would have the link so he could participate. So I don't know why he or his other people weren't able to come. That being aside, let's see if we can make a decision. The first question I have to make a decision: do we all feel comfortable that we have the information we need that we can each make a decision? You looking
Yep.
for more information?
I believe we're good.
Well, I'd like an answer to the question of, is the wood salvageable question a basis to delay this for another
No.
6 months, which means, is the wood salvageable issue a pivot point on whether or not this property, this building is architecturally significant? So the answer is, I'm hearing no. The wood salvage has no relevance to the question of whether this is architecturally significant, yes or no?
No,
I've never seen that in anything I've ever read.
So the question of whether the wood is salvageable has no real relevance to whether it's architecturally significant or not, correct?
right.
Okay.
So
So
we've been using the terms architecturally significant and historically significant. I want to make sure we're using those properly, and I'm not, are they two separate criteria?
Two separate criteria,
Yeah, I
even
think-
one rules.
I think they're two separate criteria.
They two separate
thi-
criteria. You don't have to have both. You only have to have one.
6 years ago,
Okay, all right.
6 years ago, that question was addressed, but only as a result of wood salvage. So if you take away the wood salvage question, what's left is the decision 6 years ago was that there's no historical architecturally significant relevance to this building.
Well,
Correct?
back 6 years ago, we didn't know what the situation was regarding the wood. We just felt that part of the process was to look at the barn.
Okay, so let's fast forward 6 years. Right now, we're saying we don't think the wood salvageable question should be the pivot point on whether or not we say this building qualifies as historical or architecturally significant. Can you answer that? Because my vote will probably hinge on that question. And I'm
Brian.
thinking that the wood salvage issue has nothing of significant, I don't want to say that word too many times, but nothing relevant to the question of historical or architectural significance. Right? I mean, I'm taking that
Well,
wood salvage issue away.
In my mind, the barn certainly 6 years ago was determined to be architecturally significant because it was an old barn with old wood, and none of us at that time and none of us today are experts in old barns and old wood. And we felt it was historically significant, and let's see if that's the case with the wood. And if it's architecturally significant, then let's try to salvage the wood. That was the logic used, and it was the first time we used that logic. We never had an intent to not tear it down. The interest was to try to salvage the wood rather than putting it in a dumpster. It appears now what we know that the wood would probably end up in a dumpster. But that's not guaranteed. That's not guaranteed either, because there are people still interested in old wood, not always a specialist that's interested in old wood.
Norm, didn't we do the same thing on Howard Street, the barn on Howard Street, or not?
There was a barn on Howard Street, but it was not the same vintage. It wasn't in the 100-year criteria when we looked at it.
Okay, I thought we asked them also. I thought they were also looking at salvaging the wood.
That barn's still up, so it actually was a garage. The one we're talking about, Howard Street. I'm sorry, the one on Howard Street. They were salvaging the old wood. I don't think that ever happened.
Okay, but in terms of applying that the same logic, I think we might have done it on that decision.
Street, the big barn on Howard Street, and see what happened. But then in the end came down, and I don't know. I'd have to go and look and see how we wrote that up. That's a different thing.
Okay, yeah, it was just to the point about whether this is the first time we had done this kind of approach. I was just wondering.
Yeah, I don't see the wood salvage issue as part of the discussion. I think if a barn is architecturally significant or historically significant, would have to do with how the barn's constructed, the joints. Are they unique? Are they, do they represent some facet of New England joinery and history that would make the barn architecturally significant? Or if it was a place where, they stored ammunition during the Revolutionary War or something, or, if there was some, it was a place of the Underground Railroad or something.
Yeah,
that to me would qualify as historically significant. So none of that has been presented to us. So the question of whether the wood itself has salvage value, to me, is somewhat irrelevant. Interesting, but somewhat irrelevant to the discussion that we have to decide. Tell me I'm wrong, because I don't understand how the link is between salvaging wood and architectural significance.
Mike, I think I'm with you on this. If you take that out of the equation, then there's really nothing that says that this is a really significant structure. Neither historically, other than it's old, or architecture.
It might be, but it hasn't been presented that way, right? I mean, we haven't found, as I'm aware, anything that qualifies it as architecturally or historically significant.
Right. What was the basis for the decision 6 years ago?
Only to get a delay is what I understood.
Yeah, it was to get the delay. Well,
but if it was determined to be historically,
that barn I'm certainly not an architectural expert on barns. But if you just look at barns in the town of Northborough and old barns in the town of Northborough, it is very unique. So putting it as a significant building within the town of Northborough as an old barn we've looked at other barns that aren't unique. This one's pretty unique. And that's kind of where it came from, but also recognizing that it's going to come down.
What made it unique?
It's
Because-
3 stories high, it's huge. There's
The three
we've never
stories.
seen that kind of a barn in the town before. So maybe there's another one hiding somewhere. And that was, it wasn't unique because of the design of the barn, or the construction of the barn. That wasn't the issue at all. It was because the construction was quite different from other things in the town. I'd like to start to wrap this up. And I'm going to start with some of my thoughts. I'm a little bit on the fence on this because I think there are some valid points. And I think to me, the most valid point is it was significant. And I think Brian Swanson said it the best way. It was significant 6 years ago. How did it lose its significance now? And it's like, yeah, how did it lose it now? And what harm will a 6-month delay be? And knowing that there's these other things happening regarding that property, a 6-month delay can be a nuisance. It could also be shortened in a pinch, but I'm leaning now the fact that mostly thinking about what Brian Swanson said, it was how did it go from being significant, and it could still be significant now with the same interest of finding out how can that wood be salvaged is at times different, which is what Brian Smith mentioned.
Yeah.
The price of wood in the last year, things have just changed. Maybe there is someone that can use that wood that's not a specialist, that might be just more pragmatic with it. So I'm kind of leaning that I don't see the harm in a 6-month continuation of the delay. That's where I'm standing right now. You can try to convince me different, but
Again, it's not a continuation. I don't mean to
45
be,
minutes, I've gone back and forth in my head both ways.
I don't want to be a stickler, but it's not a continuation of the delay. This is a new delay.
Correct. You're right. It is
Okay.
a new delay on a new request. Correct. So that's where I am. And does
I'm
anybody
with
else?
you, Norm. I'm with you.
I'm just concerned about making the decision based on what harm would it do versus saying it has significance, which is really what our decision should be based on.
Well, I was showing both sides, but certainly my primary one is how did it go from being significant 6 years ago to being insignificant today?
But I thought the making it significant 6 years ago was the only purpose of that was to get the delay. So what determined it as significant, we might not ever know.
Well, the three of us who made that decision is still hanging out.
Right.
We made it because it was a unique building, and we thought there could be a way of salvaging the wood for a unique building.
Just a question for
But it
clarification.
would have a
If-
demo,
I'm
It-
sorry, Millie?
but it still would have a demo. So the purpose of another 6-month delay would be to see if they will want to resalvage the wood again.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't see where that barn will be utilized in any future plans. Not within 6 months,
Is it?
unless someone pops up out of nowhere.
It's on the owner again to try to find a salvager. And the report that he had was from professional barn salvage experts that didn't want anything to do with it.
And that's what I don't know, in that he's not here, if we
Yeah.
did that 6 years ago or 3 days ago. I don't know that, if that's new information or old information. And I don't know if we had 3 people look at it or just one person. There's quite a few unknowns there that I don't see the harm in checking back.
Do we have to go for either a 6-month delay or vote to accept the demo, or can we continue this until they do come back? If that's possible, or does that make any sense?
Continue it to our next meeting. Is that what you're thinking, Millie?
Yeah,
I'd like to address it tonight, but
Yeah,
okay.
put it in perspective, we've had more discussion about this barn tonight than we did with White Cliffs. So
I know,
it
I
seems to be,
know.
I think that the discussion was good. Don't get me wrong. I just think that in the scheme of things, I think we should like to try to make the decision tonight.
Okay,
Does everybody feel comfortable that they can make a decision tonight? Or they would abstain because they don't feel comfortable that they know what they want to do? Because we need, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 of us voting tonight. All right.
Just for, clarification, what happens after 6 months?
They tear it down. They tear it down. You guys, essentially, you have 6 months to try to find an all. The way the process works is we are supposed to work with the owner to find an alternative to demolition over the period of 6 months. That's how it's worded.
What's the alternative? Is just to leave the barn up and cancel the project?
no, no, no.
What do you mean?
It's going to be demolished, right? At the end of
Yeah,
6
At
months?
least with the current plan that they have in place, it will be demolished, yes. Unless a new plan comes in place and somebody comes in with a totally different story, then it won't be demolished. If somebody wants to buy it, more power to them and salvage it, but
so they don't have to come back before us in 6 months. Either way.
correct. And they do
Okay.
not have to come back to us. There's a clock. The clock started ticking April 1st.
Okay,
So I'm gonna go one by one and see if you feel comfortable making a decision tonight. Millie,
I do.
Leslie,
Yes.
Brian Swanson,
Yes.
Brian Smith,
Yes,
Mr. DeShano.
Yes.
Okay, so now let me do the roll call vote. Okay. Millie, what would you say? Is the building considered significant?
I do not. Nay.
Leslie Harrison,
Yes.
you think it is significant?
Yes.
Brian Swanson,
Yes.
it is significant. Brian Smith,
yes,
you think it's significant?
yeah,
Michael,
No. So a no vote means you approve the demolition.
a no
Right.
vote means that there was no 6-month delay.
So the demolition permit is approved without delay.
Correct.
Okay.
And I have to vote yes. So way it is now, we have 4 yeses and 2 nos. So the 6-month demolition delay will be implemented. And this is the first time. No, yeah, this is only the second time where we don't have a complete agreement.
It's okay. I mean, that was a worthy discussion, I think.
It brought up a lot of things for the future, I think. Barns
Mhm.
are coming down in this town on a regular basis. This is probably the 6th one that I've been involved with, maybe more.
Yeah,
Kind of sad. I don't
which
like
is
seeing them.
really the
I don't like
sad
seeing
part
demolished.
overall.
The bottom line with all of this, I don't know if anybody will ever listen to the whole video, but the bottom line for all of this is when it comes to demolitions of property, the owners are in 100% complete control. We can delay things, but the owners are in 100% complete control. Sometimes I think there's an impression out there that there are other boards that can stop these things. It's not the way the town bylaws read.
Yeah.
You know, I would just like to make a point, Norm, about that. And that is if the owner is of the opinion that he wants the barn to come down and we put a 6-month delay, we also say to him, we want you to go find other uses for this barn, kind of is against what his intention is. So we're asking him to do something that is something that they may not want to do. So, it's a little odd to me that on one hand, we say, you can't proceed with the demolition. And no, by the way, we want you to do something that would prevent the demolition, when he's already of the opinion that he wants the demolition.
That's
So we're
correct.
asking-
That's the
So
situation
it's-
we're in every time a demolition request comes.
It's
in
this
front of
really
us.
odd thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the intent of look at it differently. The intent of the demolition request, the reason why it comes in front of us is our responsibility is to try to look for alternatives to demolition. That's our responsibility. But in almost every instance that I can think of, the owner is requesting the demolition for a development to go in, or for a new home to go in, or something of the like. And they may not particularly agree with our interest, but we're doing what we're supposed to do.
My point is-
I'll be blunt here. I only know of one success that's come in front of us for a demolition that hasn't occurred. Well, I take that back. White Cliffs was one, and there are several that have come in front of us for demolitions where we've okayed or put a 6-month delay on. And there's one on Winter Street, and there's another place, another property in town that we voted to have it demolished, and they found a second owner who purchased it and did not demolish. They renovated. So it all depends on what the owner can find.
But my point is, the owner is not, if he wants that thing demolished, and then we say it's counter to his goal of developing his property, if he wants to develop his property. And so we don't have any particular strong language that says you must do the following things. So it's if he doesn't want the building saved, I mean, he could do a relatively, bad job, say, so to speak, of finding other uses for it, because there's no requirement that says you must comply with this requirement or that requirement. It just says, go try to find somebody else who would, use it for a different property. It just seems counter.
Well, there's since we're on the demolition topic, I think we all recognize, if you haven't, you will soon, a 6-month demolition delay on any property has absolutely no effect whatsoever, because most of the savvy developers and owners put the demolition delay in right from the get-go, and it usually takes 8 to 9 months to decide on a new development, that zoning is going to work, new design. So they put that in, and even if we slap on the 6-month delay, it has no effect on them whatsoever. I mean, you can look at the intersection, the corner of Lincoln Street and West Main Street. The developer knew that it was going to come down. And I'm not criticizing them, they just have that savvy. The only situation we have real legal control over demolition is anything that tries to be demolished in the local historic district. Those properties, somebody wants to demolish them, we can actually take them to court. So that's just keep that in mind. Those are the differences between a local historic district and what we try to do as a historical commission to entice. We're just trying to entice people to look at other options. They don't have to look. We're just trying to give them a creative way to look at it, maybe think out of the box a little bit. In some cases it might work. 90% of the time or more it doesn't. It's a frustration, but it's the way it is right now. We tried to move it to get a 1 year rather than 6 months delay back in 7 years ago, something at town meeting. So we did try to expand it, because now when you start putting a year in, it's a whole new ballgame. Because now a year does affect developers, because it's in the time frame is different. And there were some of the towns around here, some of the historical towns around here have a 1.5 year delay. Just to know that these are the things that occur in other towns and how they approach the demolition delay process.
My only thought in closing would be, if we're going to ask these guys to find a significant reuse to prevent demolition, then we ought to be able to say to him, and I'm not saying it's part of what we can do, but it would seems to make sense that we would say, you need to get an architect to come in, evaluate the buildings in terms of, is there something of significance, the joints,
Yeah.
how the building is constructed, and get a historical perspective of a historian to say, that this actually was an underground railroad stop, or it was a place where the colonials met before the revolution, or something. And if we got them to do one or two of those things, then we would say it's not historically or architecturally significant because qualified professionals have said so, other than us just kind of thinking,
Yeah.
it's a big building, it looks cool.
Well, I understand. I think, I'm glad you brought it up, Mike, and in the letter, if we're in agreement, in the letter, I will request that they reevaluate the architecture of the building to see, to really just to let us, to find out more about the architecture and what value it might currently have. Put that
Norm,
in.
for clarification, in your letter,
Yep.
we're only talking about the large barn, right? We're not talking
No,
about.
we're
the
talking
house.
about the whole property, the barn and the house. We never discussed the house because that was not architecturally significant, not historically significant. So that is definitely the case with the houses, with the other property.
So
Are we ready to move on? We have a long night ahead of us. It's an hour and a half already.
Woo.
We're going for a record tonight? No, we have a time limit. Why don't we, so we'll close the open hearing. We'll close the discussion on the public hearing for 1 Lyman Street. So I should go around and vote that we are closing it. Is everybody accepted to that? Can I have a motion to close the meeting, the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Very good. Mike DeShano,
Close it.
Leslie,
Yay.
Brian Smith,
Yay.
Millie,
Yes.
Mr. Swanson,
Yes.
and Norm, me. Okay, we close it. Now we'll get to our regular routine meeting. Can we wrap up? Can everybody access their email and take a look-see at what Bob Light sent us for the most recent committee meeting?
Oh,
If we all can take, if we can't access it, we'll just delay it till next week. It's not a problem.
I did not get an email.
You did not get it. All right.
hold on. I might be able to share with you guys. Let me see if I got mine. Let's see, share screen. I'm gonna try this, okay, peeps?
All right. Oh, I did get it. So all right.
Hey.
Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, Millie, you're getting
Can't
good
read
at
it.
this.
Okay, look at me go. Woo!
All right. So you'll tell us when to switch from page 1 to page 2.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready when you are.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Mike.
Mike, ready? I can't see Mike. Is he ready?
Nah,
He's got a big magnifying glass. Looks like a Sherlock Holmes there.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. All right, I gotta plug this in. All right, we're gonna switch. We're moving. I'll come back if you need Mike.
That's what I remember.
Yep.
All right.
Someone want to make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of, what was that?
March 17th,
March 17th, yes.
So moved.
second.
Okay. So Millie seconded. All right, I gotta do the roll call thing. So here we go. Mike,
Approve.
Leslie,
Yes.
Brian Smith,
Yes.
Millie,
Yes.
Mr. Swanson,
Yes.
myself, yes. All right, progress.
All right, I'll take that off.
What I'll do is I'll send all three of these back to Bruce and the one with the one-line edit in it, and he can get them off to where they belong. Very good. Thanks, guys. Making progress. All right. Old business. The Brigham Street Burial Ground. It will be installed on Monday. So keep your eyes open. This is the historical marker for burials, the burial ground.
Wow, that was fast. It feels fast.
It hasn't been fast. But the DPW located a spot for it today. It's between the brass marker that was there from back in the day when it was put in and the new sign that we hung that said Brigham Street Burial Ground. And it's set back a little from the street. So that looks good. Keep your eye out on Tuesday, and we have a new marker in town. That was good. I'm pretty happy with that.
You say, I'm sorry, I missed that one. Was that for the Brigham Street?
That's the Brigham Street Burial Ground interpretive sign.
Got it.
The Howard Street Burial Ground interpretive sign. So what I'm going to show you is the new design that they sent us. If I can do this and find things. Oh, let me see. I got to check an email to get it. Get that out. Just bear with me a second. All right. Share screen. We can do this here. There you go. Let's see. I think my father taught me something. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is a replica of what's there now. Only this will be the new interpretive sign. So this is what the face will look like. It's going to look very much like what's already there.
Can you blow it up more? Can you enlarge it?
I can blow it up a little bit. I don't. There's another image that'll blow it up that we can see the wording better, I think.
Oh.
So for those who haven't seen, though, I'm gonna have to shrink you guys in my way. Here we go. All right. So for those who haven't been there and haven't looked at it, this is the map that the scout did. This is the information that tells about every grave marker on the map.
Wow.
And on the right-hand side, this is the information that some particular stones have that are a little bit more information on them. Now, Leslie and I are working through this because it was riddled with edits and typos and mixes. So I wouldn't say we've rewritten it, but Leslie's taken it upon herself to rework it. We're not ready to show you that yet. Leslie, I haven't opened up your email from today. So we're still working on that. That's the loose end with that. But that's what the face will look like. It's not the final version at this point. I just want you to get an idea. I can already see some things are missing, and we'll deal with that later. And They recommended a different design, a cantilever design, rather than 4 posts. They want to put 2 posts in and cantilever it like with the same basic design we're using at Brigham Street. And I was concerned with that because 4 posts is, in my mind, is sturdier. But the owner of the company got back to me, says, no, just don't worry about that. This thing's made out of steel. It's not going anywhere. So it's gonna have the same kind of 2 posts in the ground, tilted face design. When Leslie and I finish up working on the details of what's on the right-hand side, then we'll go in for a formal review and the like. But I just wanted to give you guys an update where things are. And then I'm going to send this over to Cemetery Commission, because they need to get an idea of what our plans are. Not so much about the details, but this in the image of the structure that's being recommended.
So Norm, what's on the right side is the stuff we're working on, or what's on the left?
Correct.
Okay, so what's on
The gray,
the
what's
bottom-
in gray? We're working
what's on the bottom left?
that. That's those are all numbered to the gravestones. That's the map with the numbers, and below is the key for all of the.
Right, but what's the text? Does that have to be reviewed also?
We can't review that. That's cast in stone. We have no access to this. That's a JPEG file. We're not touching that. We're going to have to assume that the scout is accurate. And every time I did find a few errors on the map, but we have to assume that what he did in this section of the map is correct.
And those are different stones than the ones that are featured on the right?
Oh God, yeah, there's 250 markers here. He's only highlighting about 20.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is all we're trying to do is take what the scout had done and get it out of pressure treated plywood with plastic and put it onto a much more durable sign. And originally we were hoping that this was going to be straightforward. The only complication we've arrived at is in the section that's in the gray area, which has a lot of text. It just needs quite a bit of editing and cleaning up. Yeah, with what he's done here with lining up each map number to a burial, at this point, that's his responsibility. We can't even we got to leave that alone. So that's where that stands. This is really just for information, nothing to be voted on, but just this progress. And next go around, we can probably go into the gory details. Okay?
It's a lot of work.
Well, it wasn't. Everything looked like it was going to be real easy until Leslie really took a look at it and realized, oh, there's a lot of inconsistencies on this gray area. So that was a surprise, but we'll work with it. We'll get it done. Beauty with this stuff is there's no time frame. We just get it done and move on. So that's the interpretive signs. The historic preservation plan. I sent some documents to you guys.
Yeah.
Back, and if I can find them, let's see. So you can see my screen, correct? All right.
Yeah.
Good. Let's see what we got here. So the table, the only reason why I'm sending you this, the table of contents, is so you know where I am and what's been written so far. So the 2 sections tonight that I want you to just take a look at are in red. I want to take a look at the purpose of a preservation plan, which is something that Bob Light put together for us. And then I want to look at the overview of the Northborough history that I pulled together. At this point, I'm really not looking for the crossing the I's, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I want to get an idea, is this the right kind of information? Is this the way we want to go? Is something grossly missing and that kind of thing? Got it?
Yep.
So I'm going to pull up, this is what Bob wrote for us, the purpose of the historic preservation plan. He did a great job stealing things from, what's HPP? Oh, the Historic Preservation Plan of Massachusetts.
Right.
All right. So he did a good job of actually stealing verbatim right out of the Massachusetts Preservation Plan, which is what I like to do for these things.
In some cases, I edited from the master plan to just make it fit better with what we were saying. So I changed the text.
Which is perfect. I mean, I just, as much as we can, I want to steal from other plans. So for this one, I'll start. The only comment I have is in blue, which is the core of what a preservation plan is supposed to do. So I think that's part of it. And all of the, everything that's in black, I think will be incorporated in the document, but maybe not up front. I think it might be in part of the history of the town or something like that, because it's all good information. That's the comment that I have. Anybody else look at it and see something that they might think's missing, or?
Norm, when did you send this?
When did I send it? Let me see.
Because I have the older one that you sent.
Okay. March 31st.
All right, I'll have to look for that.
Okay. You can look at it, and then I can resend it. Did everybody else get it?
Yeah,
Yes.
I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
Hey, Norm, could you send me a copy?
You bet, Tom.
Thank you.
All right. Was there anything that stuck out? Does it look like we're on the right track? At this point, that's all I'm looking for.
I think it looks right.
Okay.
Yeah, looks great.
I agree.
Oh, and I highlighted the word prevent. I know I wasn't, it's food for thought, so I want you to think about this. It says the Northborough Historical Preservation Plan would prevent irreversible loss of historical heritage as a result of suburban development. The preservation plan won't prevent anything except the demolition of buildings in the local historic district. So prevent is too strong a word. They don't have to come up with another word, a way of wording it. Encourage the solving the encourage the restoration and reuse. It's probably more of the word that we. All right, so that's good. That's all I wanted tonight. I just wanted to show where things were going.
Yeah.
This is the town history section. It's longer than I thought it was ever going to be, but all I did is I took something that Beth Finch McCarthy wrote with her permission, stole that. And the reason I took it is it's the first time I see a real clear explanation of how we went from Marlborough Plantation to the town of Northborough, and why that happened. And it's about a page and a half of text with a couple of images. And so I thought that was a good find. And then I went, and she actually pointed it out to me, which is a little embarrassing. And then I went to Bruce Collette's report. Bruce Collette, he wrote the inventory, the second inventory that we did for the town of Northborough back in 2008. It was his project, and he inventoried all those properties. And at the end of the actual inventory, he writes a report of the information about the history of the town. Again, all I did was took that verbatim and stuck it in here. And it's about 3 pages long, 3 or 4 pages long, but I've never seen things written this way about the town. It's ours to use since he did it under our contract. I would only make a few edits here and there. I made some notes to myself because he references phase 1. But that really doesn't apply. I just need to word the sentence a little different. The only question I have in this, and I'll show you, when he works through this, he goes through specific properties that has a specific topic. So what you should be seeing on the screen now is agriculture.
Yeah.
He talks about agriculture in the town. And then he goes through on the 3rd paragraph, he identifies specific houses and families associated with agriculture. And what he does is you can see these references right here, NBO 0.250. those actually reference Massachusetts document that has that information on it. So I like that idea. Somewhere I'd have to explain what those references are because it's very thorough. But is that the right thing to do? Is that a reasonable thing to do?
Well, you would include that table with it, right? The Excel
Yes, I
spreadsheet.
would include that table, which is the other thing I'll pick up. I include that table. So
Yeah,
that's, I just have to make note that those reference numbers are in the table.
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate.
Interesting, he brings up barns in the last paragraph as being.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how many of those are left.
Number of properties that retain sizable barns, and he lists 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 different properties. I was looking for the irony if the barn that we were talking about today was on that list.
Wow.
It is funny, it is not, but the one on Howard Street is, and that was torn down. I think the one on Crawford Street, no, that one I think is still there. Pleasant Street barn is still there. I hate to put a list together of the 5 or 6 barns that have been torn down. But yeah, that is a little ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
May have to edit that and say torn down. All right, so that's all I was looking for this. At some point we'll have to go through with a real editing and make sure the commas are right and the verbiage is right. But I just want to, I don't want to go down that path until we think it's the right approach. All right, so along those lines, there we go. So this was done actually earlier in the year. Actually, Mike DeShano, you started this when you recognized that you could go to the Macris site and download all that data into a spreadsheet. I don't know if you remember showing me that, but when you did that, I just went back through and then actually edited it to find out a little bit more which ones have been demolished. So this is the database of the Macris Northborough Historic Assets, pulled right out of as of January 1st. And you can see it's quite extensive.
I don't think I'm seeing that right now.
It's the +1. It's a +1 on the email that he sent.
No, I have it on shared. I'm sharing it. Nobody sees what I'm sharing?
I see it.
Brian Swanson, you don't see it
No.
on your screen? Huh. Well, it was in when I sent this in with the other 2 documents. It's the spreadsheet version.
Yeah, I did see it before, so that's okay.
Yeah, and you gotta love the technology. Doesn't always work 100%. Sorry about that. But anyway, so this is going to be an appendix essentially of it. And all right, that's all I wanted to do with that. And on the only other things I want to tuck in this note on the preservation plan, I've done a draft of CPA projects, of all the CPA projects dealing with history. It's about, I'll share with you next time, but it's over $3 million of funding that the CPA has funded for historic preservation and restoration. Almost just under $1 million has gone into the town hall that the current administration is sitting in for restoration and the works over a period of 4 years. I've never added those up together before. I've also done a history section on the Historical Society. I'm not ready to send it out yet, and their role in preservation of the town history. And as I've gone through some of their information, I've been amazed at how critical their role has been. Now I'm going through the section. I'm trying to write the history of the Northborough Historical Commission, and it turns out all the files of the Northborough Historic Commission when they were in existence from 1968 to 1984 are located in the Historical Society's archives. I've borrowed them. Fascinating to read. It's going to be an interesting section to write, I'll tell you. That group that was active in that time period, they did a tremendous amount of work. Their biggest challenge is they had no money. Our advantage now is we have CPA funding. they tried to do a lot of things of their own, and I think they got a little burned out because it really was too much. So that's the one I'm writing now, and it's actually pretty interesting. So that's it on preservation plan. Mike, you sent some information out on the archaeological sites that I was looking at. What would you like us to do with that information you sent us? You sent us a couple of documents of examples of potentially proposals, RFPs.
Well, I was sending it out because I thought during the meeting, we were talking about examples, and I said I could send out some information I had retrieved from the discussion I had with those three archaeological firms about doing an archaeological townwide survey.
Right.
So, go ahead. So I sent it out. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but I sent out the document that I received. I think it was from, was it from Groton or North Attleboro?
Yeah, I don't
think it was-
remember which one. When I looked at it, let's see, I can pull that up.
North Andover, I think.
Yeah, I think it was North Attleboro.
Oops, wrong button. You guys still with me?
Yeah.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Nope.
No,
Not yet.
No.
All right, I love this stuff. Great. All right. Let me try this. I think I have too many things open. How come, I somehow lost the Zoom link. Can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great. All right.
So try to see if there's
There it is. I found everybody again. Just hit the wrong button at the wrong time. Let me see if I can do this again. No, I can't find it.
Which one are you looking for?
Mike sent two documents to us, and I got one here. It has project scope on it,
Oh, that one. Okay. Yeah. I was
which
referring
I
to
thought was
something else.
real.
This one I sent on April
20th?
12th, I believe.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, April 12th. Yep.
April 12th.
Yep.
And this has scope of works that were that I gleaned from, I think it was the North Attleboro document, but it could have been the Groton document. But anyway, it was from
Is it on
PAL.
the screen? It might be on the screen now. Did that work?
Yep.
yeah,
Okay. Need training.
Yeah,
here.
and it's a pretty good description, I thought, of if we were going to come out with some kind of a scope of work to try to get folks like PAL to do a townwide archaeological survey. This would be, I mean, I don't think I could improve on this if I looked at it for 100 years. It's got everything I could imagine and then some. So
I have to agree with you, Mike. It was really thorough. It's like a recipe for how to request this type of a project.
So I would use this. I mean, we could modify it, you know, take some stuff out and contour the discussion to be more Northborough friendly, but I would use this as a very good starting point to, if we were going to try to get, you know, people to bid on a townwide archaeological survey. Certainly, I mean, to me, this would be the starting point. So I sent it out because I said I would, and the other thing is, it gives us a chance to look at it to see if this is really kind of what we had in mind, or if it was something a little bit too intense for what we were thinking. I think it's probably as thorough as you could imagine.
Yeah, I'm thinking what the next step is, and we haven't really formally approached the planning board or the planning department to say, hey, we're thinking of having something like this done. Maybe we're ready to do that now. Say,
I would totally agree. I think it has to be in concert with the planning, and even the GIS guys, I think, should be involved, because ultimately, wherever these things end up, it would be helpful if the sites, and it's a GIS question as far
Yeah.
as sensitivity goes, but they would seem to be valuable if they're on a GIS map. And I guess the GIS coordinator could decide if the person that was looking for the information had a need to know. But
why don't we, right now it's kind of crazy time in town because of the town meeting coming up and the voting that's coming up. So why don't we consider early June approaching the planning board and the town planner, and start with them to see if this is something that we need to be considering for the near future. Does that make sense? Revisit this in June with those two departments?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does.
I'm sure the planning guys would be, well, I'm not sure, I shouldn't say that, but I think they would be interested.
Oh, I think they would be, and we already have a lot of information, but I think they would be.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the action item on that is June timeframe, visiting with the planning board and planning department, Kathy Huber.
Just to close the loop, the other two things that I sent were the reference to the Northborough municipal code that was from one of the documents that I was looking at, the archaeological survey documents, and it referenced Northborough, and then Norm passed to me the actual documents themselves, the bylaws themselves that were referenced in that document. And there's not a whole heck of a lot that I
No.
saw, at least, that jumps out as far as archaeological goes. But
and Millie, if you forwarded some information for us, if I remember too, you were looking into some information about the archaeological requirements for surveys on some developments. So, but that's the only place it's in there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
if you're doing a subdivision, it automatically triggers it.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I was trying to find that in this, and I didn't quite see that.
I thought I referenced it in a previous set of minutes, but I don't have it with me at this
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
The codes.
all right.
Okay.
So, anyway, so all that can wait till the June timeframe.
Okay.
I put the Old Grange Hall on here, but that I didn't realize we had already discussed it last month, so we can skip that. It's new owner, single family home, which is, I'm going to try to contact them and thank them for doing that. It's 9 o'clock, so I'm going to recommend, if you don't mind, that we delay the discussion regarding the Old State Hospital grounds till next month. There's no urgency in that at all, but I do like to review it with you, but it's 2 hours, so I'm starting to get burnout. Is that acceptable? We wait a month on that?
Yep.
Yep.
I'll only say one word. I'll only say one sentence regarding that. It looks like there's a possible mitigation for the town of Northborough It's probably would involve some historic markers somehow, somewhere. It's all very nebulous at this point. It depends on a lot of things, but I don't have a written commitment for that. But Bob was able to join me at the time. And we got a lot more information, but the crux of the meeting is that. All right, it's officers' time. April is when we vote our officers for our commission. So we have 3 positions. We have chair, vice chair, and secretary. I'll start with the easy one, which is secretary. Bruce is not here.
I nominate Bruce.
He did confirm. I would have not do this to him if he did not confirm. He did confirm that he'd be more than happy. So I will nominate him to be the secretary of the Historic District Commission, Bruce Shute. So I need a second for that.
I second.
And then I guess we get the vote. So I should ask before we vote, are
Bring
there
us
any
back
other
to the,
volunteers that might want to be the secretary so we don't force it on Bruce?
You make it sound so appealing.
Bruce does a good job. I really encourage him to do it. We've had some very good secretaries lately. And now we have a new one in training, so we're good.
I got 7 pages of notes. I don't know how much you guys are really gonna like this.
You can condense the 2.
Yeah.
Hit the highlights. All right, so I don't see anybody else offering, so I need a second for Bruce, and then we vote. And did someone second for Bruce already?
Yep, I did.
Thank you. So Mike DeShano,
Yes, I approve Bruce.
Leslie,
Absolutely.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Millie,
Yes.
Mr. Swanson,
Yes.
and I say yes. So Brian's in. I mean, excuse me,
Bruce.
Bruce is in. Too many B's. That's why I'm getting tired. I turn this off, it's a little better. Yep. All right. We'll go for chair. And I was looking for some possibilities. I'm going to have to do a different approach next year. But so let's open it up for chair. Any nominations for chair?
I nominate Norm.
Second.
Okay.
Sorry, Norm.
I do enjoy it, but I think I'm coming to a point where it'd be nice to share the experience. So we'll go through the pecking order. Mike,
Approve, yes.
Leslie,
Absolutely.
Brian Smith,
Approved, yes.
Billy,
Yes.
Mr. Swanson,
Yes.
and I accept your nomination. Thank you, guys.
Yay.
All right, and then we have a vice chair. I'd like to nominate Leslie vice chair. Unless someone else would like, I should open it up in case someone else would like to try that seat for a while.
I nominate
I don't
anybody
see a
but-
lot of hands raising right now.
I
So-
second.
So Mike second, Leslie. All right, so we'll go through the voting process. Mike,
Yes.
Leslie.
Sure.
Oh yeah, of course. I should ask you last. Bruce, Brian Smith.
Acceptable.
She's acceptable. Very good. Millie,
Thanks for the vote of confidence there, Brian.
Mr. Swanson,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Very good. We got that out. I've asked Brian Swanson to take over the letter writing for letters of appreciation, and he accepted to do that. So Brian, what I have is a list of ones we've done in the past and a list of a couple of ones that were outstanding that Xenia and Alex weren't able to get to before they had to resign. So I'll send you that, and then it's pretty straightforward. And I'll also send you some examples. It's usually a nice thank you with a little information about the house. And then we've been able to attach the Macros data, just attach that somehow.
Okay.
So it's not a lot of work, but it's something really we should do. And we've been actually, and I might ask also is, we had contemplated, if we find that there's a new owner for an antique property, we'd also contemplated to write them a letter just so they know who we are and information on the property and like. But there's a couple of good things going on in town right now, I'm happy to say. New members. Tom Reardon has accepted being part of our team.
Hey,
Hey,
So I didn't realize till recently, Tom Reardon was in one of the original members of this commission back in 2005, 2006.
Oh, wow.
Leslie, you weren't on it, but you were involved with CPC, getting the CPA to be voted in, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Okay. But Tom was on it back, so that's a while ago, pushing 20 years now. So he
Yeah,
said he'd come
CPA
back
was
on, which is
over 10 years ago.
yeah, 6, yeah. So, and what I wanted to bring up is, you know, an ideal situation for the Historic District Commission is to have a realtor on it and to have someone that's a architect. So we haven't had that. I'm really happy that Tom could fill in for the architect role. We should try to shake some trees for a realtor. So I've got a couple people I know in town that I've approached, but I haven't heard from yet. And if you know of people that are realtors that might be interested in some history of the town, we certainly would benefit from having them on the team. Right now, remember we have 7 alternate positions. Bob Light has filled the 1. It's always nice to have 2 or 3 because it just rolls over with as people move around.
mhm.
And I have one
I
last.
just looked, CPA was 2004. So longer ago than I remember.
It was 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I started in 2006. So yeah, it's been a while.
Whoa.
So I have one last request, which is a little out of the ordinary, I think, but I'm gonna, if you remember, we were involved with the nomination of the Gale store for an award from Preservation Massachusetts. And they got the award and they got certificates. What comes with the certificates is they comes with 1 framed certificate, which they supply. But we also requested 5 additional certificates that were unframed to give to some of the key members of that team. So if I can do it from memory, it's Trinity Church, Algonquin High School, Assabet Regional High, the Affordable Housing Group in the town of Northborough because of CPA funding. So I needed 4 more frames, and I bought 4 frames at Gaston Art and Frame with a total of $131. And we have that money in our budget. And I wanted to know if you'd be in agreement that we buy the frames for those awards that we supported. We still have a balance, I think, of $500 for this year. So we're financially, we're okay.
So moved.
Does anybody think that that's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do?
I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay. And since it's an expense, I need to go through the roll call almost one last time. So we're voting to see if the $131 expense for the framing of the award certificates is acceptable. Mike?
Approved.
Leslie?
Yes.
Brian Smith?
Yes.
Millie?
Yes.
Brian Swanson?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So thank you for that. I'll fill out a voucher and get reimbursed. Thank you. I have the next meeting day is May 19th. Anybody see a problem with that?
My anniversary, so I could have a problem.
That's
That's okay.
not acceptable.
That's all right though.
If you can't make it, we'll work around it, Bob. We'll
Okay.
deal with your absence. So if that's acceptable, and we delay our discussion regarding the state hospital grounds, we can close up shop if you want to.
Make a move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Second.
It was one of the Brians. Go for Swanson. He isn't. Brian Swanson second that.
All right.
All right, roll call and then we can be going. Mike,
Yes, approved.
Leslie,
Yes, please.
it's a long one tonight. Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Millie,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Hey, thank you for all that conversation this evening. It was a long one, but I think it was probably good for all of us to get more educated about how this system works with demolition delay in this unique.
Yeah,
Absolutely, that was great.
So we will see you on May the 19th. Have a good month.